This video will have spoilers for Soul Calibur 2, which I know many say is kind of insane me mentioning a spoiler freaking warning for a fighting game, but I mean, I don't have to mention the event Soul Calibur 2 when it comes to the main narrative and premise of this game, so yeah, you have been warned even though the only way to play Soul Calibur 2 currently is on Nintendo Switch Online. This is the PS4, PS5 for Soul Calibur 3. You love wonky releases, so right away, you have been warned. Soul Calibur 3 originally released on the PlayStation 2 back in 2005, and later got an arcade version in 2006. This notable arcade version has differences from the console version, but this video is based on the console version that was recently ported to PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. This was a big surprise to see get a port, it was technically emulation, ported to PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 when it was announced on State of Play, and the responses were either people complaining about Soul Calibur 2, people still complaining that Soul Calibur 3 has no guest characters, which the franchise has been known for since Soul Calibur 2, or people complaining that it's the console versus the arcade version. Kind of mentioning the arcade version made some fixes, including being the version that the FGC plays. The FGC disappoints me every single turn, I swear. But what we got is what we got. Our main premise is that after Raphael, seeking the cursed sword Soul Edge for himself, interfering with Nightmare, managed to end up freeing Seigfried. Seigfried, using the holy sword Soul Calibur, used Soul Calibur to pierce Soul Edge, leaving the two swords stuck in a quote-unquote embrace of souls. With the premise of this entry being the fact that you have Seigfried, who's trying to find a way to seal Soul Edge for good, but you have all the other people on the roster seeking either the cursed sword Soul Edge or the holy sword Soul Calibur, with our main antagonist being this new entity named Zasalamel, who is actually orchestrating the event what's going on in order to have Soul Calibur and Soul Edge meet each other so he can try and end this supposed everlasting curse that has been placed upon him. But, unbeknownst to everyone, Zasalamel also restored Nightmare, with the makeshift body Nightmare has, requiring souls in order to sustain itself as it looks for Soul Edge. And where will Soul Edge be? Wherever Seigfried is. Now, despite the big narrative beats being between Seigfried, Nightmare, and Zasalamel when it comes to Soul Edge or Soul Calibur, I said earlier, there are many characters who are also seeking the swords for one reason or another, like Yun-Seong, who wants the power of Soul Edge, feeling that he won't become any stronger unless he seeks it out, actually believing that Soul Edge is a legendary sword and not actually a cursed weapon that will possess him, or Talim, who goes with Yun-Seong in her attempt to purify Soul Edge and get rid of it. You have Sophitia on another journey in order to be tasked by the gods to take care of Soul Edge, while her sister Cassandra does not like the fact that the gods keep having Sophitia go on these journeys and believes that rather than she being tasked with taking care of her nephew and niece who are in danger of Soul Edge coming for them, instead feel like, you know, their mom should be the one doing that, and that she should take on the responsibility of taking care of Soul Edge instead. Many characters have their motivation on why they're going on this whole entire journey, since every character has their own tale of the sword, telling their story.
To abandon your children and travel all this way. You're such a horrible mother. It is because I am a mother that I raise my sword to protect my children.
What I also find interesting enough is the fact that Zasalamel, being essentially this game antagonist, is also the first character on the roster. Just going by who's ever listed on the roster, the first story you could end up doing is Zasalamel immediately learning what exactly his plan is, why he's trying to get Seigfried and Nightmare in these places with Soul Edge and Soul Calibur, and why he's making this whole entire plan, and why he doesn't want anyone else interfering in his grand scheme. Every character in Tale of the Sword has two endings, with the ending being decided via a quick time event, because Tale of the Sword has some instant quick time events, and also choices you can make throughout it in order to decide what opponents you're facing and what areas you are going to. Now mind you, Tale of the Sword for each character is probably like 20 to 30 minutes per character kind of scenario, so it's not a long, lengthy scenario. It's basically the game's arcade mode, but you have a bit more wiggle room of what exactly happens and transpires throughout it as you see their journey of this story. When it comes to narrative, It's not anything too complicated, but I do enjoy what they have here, especially they also try to have moments in Tell the Sword that branches off and try to justify why each character in the scenario, or even sometimes just having the characters have different dialogue, such as this one moment where Tira can possibly attack the player, and the stuff she says has a lot of different dialogue for it, although I'm confused by certain things like why is she aggressive toward Nightmare, how come she's not aggressive enough towards Seigfried, and how come she's more aggressive towards Zasalamel than Seigfried. Like, Tira is a servant of Soul Edge, so you would think she would be trying to assist Nightmare, but isn't. You think she would want Seigfried to tame Soul Edge and embrace Nightmare, but isn't. And Zasalamel rightfully gets the scorn from her, but it just feels weird.
To cling on to the visage of that man for so long. No, I just don't understand this at all. Tell me why. Answer me.
What is the meaning of this, wretched servant?
There's also a certain moment where Zasalamel also tries to interfere with the player and has different dialogue depending on the character, such as one I find interesting is where for Seigfried and Nightmare, he won't mention how their roles are already done and they can just go die already. Or if a character unrelated to his plan, he'll possibly mention how if they want to live, they need to stop their journey right now, otherwise he'll kill them. Highlighting that he just wants to follow his scheme, and anything that tries to interfere it, whether intentional or not, will be dealt with. And the fact of, hey, you guys outlived your purpose, I don't need you anymore, be gone.
Do not involve yourself with that sword if you wish to live. I shall have to kill you if you continue. You're better than I expected. Your skills are quite impressive.
So, what's next?
I also like how, depending on the character, there are some characters who, when racked, will actually obtain Soul Edge and Soul Calibur for the final fight of their Tell of the Sword, which is freaking cool that they get to pick up the weapon and will immediately have their weapon switch to Soul Edge or Soul Calibur. Granted, at first I forgot that Soul Edge drains the health of the user in gameplay, so I ended up losing because of that, but it's one of those cool aspects where you get to see the character using the weapon in the story scenario in that moment, and it's just a really cool detail. There are some weird quirks, like I highlighted Yun-Seong and Talim's story in Tell the Sword, but when in the context of Tell the Sword, they're actually journeying together, but despite the dialogue and everything being written of their journey, highlighting the two of them on making these decisions on where they go and their motivations, their reasonings for going about it are completely different, on top of the fact that you're still getting two different complete character endings for them, even if they're supposedly supposed to be, you know, working together on this adventure. Or the fact that Yun-Seong appears in one of Talim's endings, but Talim does not appear in either of Yun-Seong's endings. So stuff like that where, yeah, these characters are supposed to be joining together, but sometimes the game doesn't really depict that in any way, shape, or form. Now for the gameplay, with Soul Calibur being a weapon-based 3D fighting game, where you have a wake attack, a heavy attack, your kick, or sometimes a punch depending on the character, and your block. But also the fact of how you're able to use it, including stuff like, hey, there are some inputs that requires you to hold the button, or the dash attacks, or even just certain attacks that only happen as the character is getting back up off the floor, in so many different ways to handle it, on top of the varying fighting styles for the characters here. Now, while they did bring back most of the characters of Soul Calibur 2 here, you will feel some overlap in movesets, just the fact that Soul Calibur 2, technically Sophitia was a skin of Cassandra, so their movesets were kind of similar, and you can feel overlap here, or same thing with Seigfried and Nightmare, where Seigfried was essentially a skin of Nightmare, so you can see some overlap in their moveset and how they're handling, which for me does trip me up if I get an opponent that has their moveset and go, oh, I'm fucking pressing using Seigfried moveset. Nope, JK, joke's on me, it was Nightmare's moveset. kind of aspect, but for the most part, all the characters have their own unique style and everything they're going for when it comes to their combat. Such as, one of my favorite characters in Soul Calibur is Yun-Seong, and while he does have swift movements, what I also like is the fact that he also has a lot of kicks in his moveset, and his stance changes that evolve doing stuff like that. It's just really cool aspects that quirks to each of the characters, and Yun-Seong is pretty much the reason why I fell in love with this franchise to begin with. Listen, I saw that throw animation Soul Calibur 2 as a kid, and I knew I had to play Soul Calibur. That's all I needed. There's some other aspects, such as the guard impact, which essentially allows you to deflect enemy attack and leave them wide open. But there's also just impact, where you're able to do it the same frame the attack goes out, giving you an even higher advantage, so there's a lot of risk for reward in the play. There's also special moves that you can do that will break the opponent's guard, but take a bit longer to come out, or there are these even more powerful moves that are fully unblockable, but they leave you wide open during the animation. You can cancel out trying to back out of it, but it's the fact that you're taking this whole risk versus reward stance when it comes to your combat. You also have the Soul Charge, which again, leaves you wide open as you do it, and if you take a hit, the Soul Charge goes away, but allows you to change certain parts of your moveset and everything. And this game does have an in-depth tutorial system teaching you the very basics of the gameplay to more advanced maneuvers, and it's a tutorial you're able to do with each character on the roster. To learn a certain character, you can in fact go to the tutorial system and pretty much practice with that character, and the stuff they have you do will change for the moveset of that character. When it comes to Tell the Sword, much other different choices to make throughout a variety, and that's something you're doing in gameplay to make choices. There are also certain special fights where the game will say it's your character you're playing as for that they're being watched. If you hit the stop option, then you'll get a special fight, which there's no real penalty for losing, except for the fact that it's you get one attempt per run. But it can be unique scenarios, fight this army of lizardmen, or hey, fight Charade, or hey, fight this freaking Colossus that will fall on you and one-shot you if it lands on you, so you better get out of the way once you actually finish the fight. Cool stuff like this that just makes you go, what the hell am I doing? Kind of watch a scenario when it comes to Tell the Sword. There are also some segments that have QTEs, and for the most part, from the QTE, will leave you at a health disadvantage for the fight, but there's one QTE where you got trapped in a cage, which can flat out change what opponent you are facing towards the finale of Tell the Sword as well. It was also freaking cool that one specifically can change an outcome of who you are fighting. There are even hidden fights throughout Tell the Sword, depending on what the player does and if they manage to do it without being defeated. So there's even more variety and stuff in it. Like I said, this is basically the game's arcade mode, and like an arcade mode, you do certain things, and you get the more cooler and hidden fights within it, with the big highlight for this game that people love mentioning is Night Terror being the true form of Nightmare, and has only been in this one game and never again. But it's one of those cool things you just find in this game and try and go against. Another cool quirk to Soul Calibur is ring outs, where because the rings have edges, you're able to just knock your opponent off the edge. And there are some levels where the stage essentially has like stuff blocking it, but sometimes you can break it and knock them off, or sometimes the stage is rather just closed in, so it's easier to actually get knocked off yourself or knock off your opponent, which also is a fun quirk on the Soul Calibur franchise of winning by ring out. Going against is a possible apocalyptic being? You're off the stage, I win. There is also character customization and entire shop system, since you're constantly gaining currency, which you can then spend on the shops. I also find it rather interesting detail that they made 3 separate shop owners for the shops, or just having the one shop owner handle all 3. They instead decided that all 3 of these shops, would be the weapon shop, the armor shop, and the item shop, all have their own different shop owners who run it. You also have the fact that for each character in the game, they have multiple weapons they can wield that does alter the stats of the weapon. Like earlier I mentioned, I forgot that Soul Edge, while being more powerful, does drain the health of the user, so you need to start being more aggressive and end fights quickly before Soul Edge decides to kill you before even you get time out. Other aspect, just a cool thing to add variety to the gameplay. And speaking of unlocks, you also have to unlock the roster, as many characters in the roster will be locked by default, so you also have to unlock the allotted roster, which for me, I do like, since it makes it exciting to get more characters and stuff to get, on top of the fact that it comes to how you unlock, at least for me, is to Tell the Sword, where once I went against them in Tell the Sword, they became unlocked to playable for the rest of the game, which means, hey, more from Tell the Sword, and a character to use, although I wish the unlock notification didn't replay every single time you unlock something. It just keeps going over and over every time. There's a fun little quirk where, after being a character tells the sword, you will actually have the character be the one to say the name Calibur III on the main menu, which is just a super cool little fun thing to have. And man, this game's from a different era in all the good ways. Also, despite being a PS2 game, it was a late-gen PS2 game, so this game actually has a natural widescreen support as well. So that's not just me picking an abomination of a freaking emulation option to make a widescreen, that's something built into the game because of how late generation Soul Calibur 3 was actually made in.
Soul Calibur 3.
Soul Calibur 3.
Soul Calibur 3.
There is also the Soul Arena mode, which is generally either the quick play mode where you just do 8 simple matches back to back, or the special mission modes that are essentially just the special matches you had from Tell the Sword, but now it's isolated game mode, so you can now retry whenever you want, on top of each one having a separate difficulty, as opposed to Tell the Sword where I swear they're all set to hard mode because the input rating on the CPU in those specific matches are ridiculous. But they're just some cool modes, whether it be something like Coin Collector, the freaking one where you have a bomb and just trying to get it to your opponent before it blows up, one way to only damage the opponent seriously when you smack them against a wall and they just go flying all around the room, but it's survival mode, like just several different things that just cool, unique modes that just reminds me about some things fighting games don't do nowadays. But it's a cool thing to include, and you do have to unlock the modes as well. Probably the biggest thing in Soul Calibur 3 is Chronicles of the Sword mode, an entire real-time strategy RPG hybrid mode that has you going around making a main character who is separate from the created characters you make for regular modes, and having this whole entire story mode that is essentially another way of telling the story of Soul Edge and Soul Calibur being used, this time in a massive war setting with the Grand Old Empire, Kingdom of Adakia, and the Haltese Republic. It's this massive mode that the fact that you can send out units and fight other units with an RTS style to let them attack each other, or take direct control and use the actual fighting game mode of Soul Calibur 3 in order to deal with the fights. Granted, when it comes to the final opponents, when you finish a mission, you will always have to take direct control of the characters in order to win the fight. My biggest gripe with this mode has to do with the fact that because we can create a character, the moveset they have is very basic at first because they only have like these weird, they don't really feel fully fleshed out movesets. Like, the main character I made was a thief, which was the greatest mistake I ever made in this mode, because I wanted to later get the soul of Yun-Seong. But it took a long while for some type of moveset, like Yun-Seong, for a good while. Instead, I had a dagger or the wave blades, which were decent enough, but I didn't really feel fully capable. Granted, so the enemies I was fighting, but just felt weird how the movesets I've been playing the whole entire game until the sword, I didn't get for a long while to get real comfortable with it. And some of the fact that because it's also an RPG, it also meant me making a thief as the main character was the worst idea because all of their stats when they leveled up kept going to agility, not to HP, not to vitality, not to strength, which they also desperately needed, agility in a fighting game. It's just one of those things that even though I leveled up that character to be on par with even the final opponent, they could still do so little damage because of the fact that their strength stat was so low, because their stats are determined based on the class you picked. And I picked Thief because I wanted a character that would later fight like Yun-Seong, so from a character in Soul Calibur, and I screwed myself over because of it. You also have other characters in your army who tend to come and go depending on what the mission is, so don't get too comfortable with the characters you're recruiting like I did, and there are some characters like, I leveled this up pretty well. Oh, they're not available in this mission. What we're gonna do now kind of sense. You can use the creative characters that you made in the regular modes and bring them here to use for this game mode as well. And you don't just use the story characters the game gives you, but just one of those weird quirks where it felt like me picking a Thief character was like the biggest mistake I could have done in the mode because he always felt completely underpowered in fights. You also have special arenas as well in this mode, depending on the places you're raiding. So there could be special effects like the stage's ice, the fact that they land on the stage, and you get set flying up and hit the ground, you'll explode and immediately get one-shotted, and stuff like that. So there's special modes, including the coin mode, which I really don't know why do I put the coin collector one in Chronicles of the Sword, but interesting choice.
Playtime. Hey, over here! This really wasn't a fair contest.
You can also come across the named characters from the main game who will all be level 60 and high powerful opponents, but a cool thing about Chronicles of the Sword is that even if your characters get defeated, they still gain experience, so you can just throw yourself at them to get some experience for your characters. It's only really game over if your stronghold's defeated. If all your units are defeated at once, you can just have one unit staying back and keep them alive so you don't get all the defeated at once. Or there are some levels where if the main character is defeated, then it's game over. So there are certain restrictions and stuff, but they also pretty much more lenient, which they better be, because the further this mode goes in, the higher enemies go, and the higher they go, the more input reading these a-holes be doing. It gets ridiculous that some of the stuff the AI is just reacting to the millisecond you push a button. So I don't really like Chronicles of the Sword. It's like a good idea, a cool, ambitious idea, but the more difficult it got to a ridiculous degree, the more annoying it got. Tough for the fact that my main character just always felt underpowered no matter what I did, no matter what weapons I got for them, no matter how high the level got, because they were a thief, and so their stats always went to agility. It just feels weird why you would have a character in this mode that does rely on strength to constantly have their agility go up and not their strength or defense, which are aspects. It's like I want to let this mode get some really cool, ambitious thing in RTS, RPG mode, because there's always an RPG mode, a fighting game, but I just felt like it wasn't fully fleshed out and wish certain things were done better, even if the idea is cool, and the story of this mode is just, it's just alright. I wasn't really invested in the narrative until I started seeing certain points like, oh, that's Soul Calibur! Kind of one sort of thing, like it took us so long for me to go invested on this story that's A Tale of the Swords retold, and it took an eternity for the swords to actually show up. Overall, I liked Soul Calibur 3 as a kid, and I still really like Soul Calibur 3 now. Well, this time, if I get to play Chronicles of the Sword mode, I kind of just ignored it as a kid, and yeah, as a kid I would not have been in this mode in the slightest. It is still cool experimentation of the format, what they can do within a fighting game like Soul Calibur. Tale of the Sword, while it can get repetitive because a lot of scenarios are repeated over and over and over, it is still a fun arcade-esque mode with just variation we can do, hidden extras in it, and also the characters having two variations towards their ending. It's a cool, fun thing to have. Top of the whole entire fighting game aspect, well, at least back in this day, I was trying to figure out which of the characters' narratives are essentially the canonical outcomes that would later be used for a sequel down the road, which are aspect. The creative character was the beginning of something that Bandai Namco would massively just keep doing, not just here, but also even with Tekken as well. Although the creative characters you make for the general modes can't be transferred over into Chronicles of the Sword, you put them in as backup units, but you still have to make a brand new create a character for Critical to the Sword, and that character you make cannot change their class at any time. So it's just weird limitations, weird aspects like that. Like, why can't I just use the characters already made? Since I made them ahead of time for the mode, the game's like, nope, make a brand new character just for this mode. It's like, dang it, what's our aspect? Yeah, the AI in this game can, at points, depending on what challenge you're doing, just get ridiculous. But there is also the aspect that, because it's still a CPU player, it can still fall for stuff that no human being would actually also fall for. So there is that caveat, but it just feels weird, the idea of, hey, how do I beat the CPU? Oh, you're such a guy cheese it. Forget everything you learned in this game and just find something that it just refuses to react to, kind of want their aspect, which is just weird. And the Solar Arena are just cool bonus game modes. It's just some party game fun as well. So it's just cool stuff to just add into this game, just to have it. Like the furniture, the fact that each character can say a name and title, or the fact that there's 3 different shop owners who you can face and unlock as bonus characters, because there's many bonus characters to unlock throughout this whole entire game, which is just very cool. Soul Calibur 3 may not be the one people think of, may not be the one that has a guest character, because it doesn't have a guest character at all, and it may not be the one that the FGC cares about. I don't care about them either. But it is still a very cool Soul Calibur title that people do try to act as if it doesn't matter just because it is the one that, oh, there's no guest character in the slightest, so who cares about Soul Calibur 3? It's all about Soul Calibur 2, 4. People ignore 5.5 is also good, and 6, baby, but like, Soul Calibur 3 is still a damn good title in the Soul Calibur franchise and everything. So what can I say about it? Alrighty then, good day.